Well, following the Schweizer-Reneke incident this week, we want to take a closer look at racial integration in schools. Also, what duties teachers and parents have to teach tolerance in a racially divided society. So joining me this evening for this conversation is Principal Maurice Malapane. And also we're going to be talking about the psychological effects, really, of racism. Maurice, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Newsnight. Let's talk a little bit about the racism incident, the racial incident, Maurice, and how is it that children can be put in a position where they have to see themselves as either black or white just because of clearly the racial issues around parents?
Yes, it's a challenge in a country like South Africa, where the skin color plays a very important role, and because of the historical development.
Now, when we're looking at that, the historical development in itself, right, one would have thought that 25 years into our democracy, at least children must not be feeling the brunt of racial segregation. But surely this must have a psychological effect on the kids themselves.
The biggest challenge which we are faced in this country is that we still hero worship the white skin as the more upper hand because of the historical past. But unfortunately, we need to have a mind shift on all the people as well as the white children, because they have inherited it and they see it's a way of life. And the blacks look at it as well as a way of accepting it as a normal way. So we really need a mind shift among our black children, because our black children as well think white means priority.
I have to question that, because there's on the other side of it, a lot of times psychologists and people would say children are not born racist. Nobody's born racist. You and I are not born racist. When we're born, we don't even differentiate between colors. And when children are when they're between the ages of, let's say, 3, 5, 6, kids are referred to as this one is chocolate, this one is vanilla, not necessarily this one is black and the connotations that are related to it, or this one is white and the connotations that are related to it. That children in their purest form are not necessarily racist, or they're not born racist. In fact, when it comes to telling color, one is lighter and the other one is darker. Is that true?
It's not true, and I want to share with you one experience which I had years ago. When I came with the concept that we don't have a black or a white brain, we have a brain. And I was referred as a terrorist, because now I'm awakening a giant which is sleeping on everybody, because we all have brains. But unfortunately, because of conditioning of how we grew up, and this is the thing which we need to change, the conditioning.
So how are we conditioned currently?
We are
conditioned. I don't want to talk about us as adults, right? My thing is the children have to sit in a class where they are separated on the premise or the assumed premise of the color of their skin. How does that affect them?
It affects them because there's no integration. And one of the biggest challenges which I've picked up is that when they are being put in a class, there is no consultation. They are just told you have to see this way. It's a command system. So our education system needs to be revitalized so that it's able to accommodate the changes which we have in our country.
But then what is stopping the education? You're coming from the education system in itself. You're a principal, right? So what stops the education system? Or is it the school governing body that will, put pressure on the teachers and how the classroom needs to be run? That's why we're finding that so many children are racially segregated in schools that are not even supposed to have this kind of a problem. What is the problem? And why is it that we're always reactive from an education system point of view? We're always reacting to a racial incident.
My observation, the SGB don't have SGB. It's not so much involved and committed to the running of the school. To me, student governing body, it's looked as a body when there's a crisis they need to step in. They are not hands-on on the running of the school.
Okay.
And that needs to change, because to me, parents governing body should be seen as able to identify some of the challenges which we are faced at the school criteria, but they leave that to the teachers and the principal.
So you're telling me that in a school such as this, the principal one day decided, or the teachers one day decided, you know what, actually black kids and white kids should not be sitting together. We're going to separate them, and no one can do anything from that point of view because nobody has got any form of authority when it comes to the way in which a classroom should be run. And I'm speaking from a parental perspective.
Yes. The other time I also spoke about the whole issue of the parents' effective training. You know, most of our parents just send the children to the school depending on the teachers, what they do. The school education, it's not holistic. It's confined to and left on the risk of teachers. And I was just looking at some of the challenges as well on one of the CAPS document, which the department have introduced. On that document, they spoke about a method, which I want as well today to speak about Sagiostopedia. That method is used, it was discovered in Bulgaria by a guy called Georgi Lozanov, where he came out with this concept, which I thought if the department can pursue and also orientate the teachers about that method, that to show that everybody can have fun in learning and forget about, and Georgi Lozanov came with that method after he have observed psychiatry patients who are always having fun and also having the way of life and appreciating what is going on. And immediately we don't do that, the school environment is not going to be conducive for everybody. That's why we still have this racial issues where people also see that as if the white children are superior and the black children are inferior.
And who are those people that see it like that? Who are, you know, when we're speaking about these people and those people,
Right.
I want us to actually be able to put a name to these people.
I want to put a name to
Who are
that.
those people that see white as superior, black as inferior?
Right. It comes from a long history. For example, as a teacher or as a principal, there's no criteria, which I know, maybe it's been established, what is the criteria for a person to become a principal?
Gotcha.
To me, that's where the starting point is. And the second issue is that when teachers are trained, they are trained on method. They are not exposed to the real situation. When they arrive in a situation, they are not able to adapt so that you see what are the needs which are there. And that's why, if, for example, I will give an example with me. I did all my subjects in Afrikaans. And it came to a time when I started realizing that it doesn't mean Afrikaans are better than me. But I had to rediscover it, not being taught at school. But at school, I used to know that all the white people are good and the black teachers are no good. I was conditioned. I'm speaking about that conditioning. Yeah. And for you to come and remove it now.
How do you remove the, because this is called hardwiring in psychology. I can't let you go for literally 30 seconds until we find some form of solution. Otherwise, you and I are going to be talking about problems without solution. So how then do we start tackling the hardwiredness? For those, as you talk about those that think that whites are superior and blacks are inferior, or for those that think that there's still racism in this country, how do we stop with that narrative and start reconfiguring the hardwiring?
Right. The first thing which we need to do is a mind shift. Most of the teachers don't see them as a resource. If a teacher don't see himself as a resource and equipping people, and I was looking at one thing as well, which I want to share with you quickly, is that the teacher must be able to remove ignorance. If the teacher don't remove ignorance, see himself as a worker, not as a profession, that's where the challenge is.
The way in which we begin to see ourselves. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, sharing some light, really interesting perspectives around how is it that we can better create a learning environment for young people that is not segregated by the color of one's skin, but really looks at the holistic teaching method there as well. So something to think about. Make sure that you check out that interview on enca.com.